Welcome to the first podcast of Shakespeare with Mr. Wu. Since we're going to cover Hamlet Act 1 our next lesson, I'll walk you through Scene 1 of the act. I'll be explaining some passages that may be confusing and also to give you some insight as you read. Now, if you turn to the first page of Hamlet, you'll first notice that the play starts out on a castle guard platform. The first line lays out what we expect to see in a staged play. Bernardo and Francisco, the two guards, enter the stage. Bernardo, a guard who arrives to the platform, opens the play by saying, "Who's there?" This first line is very important. How would the stage have to look like if it made you say this line? For Bernardo, he doesn't seem to be able to see out into the distance and identify the person that is Francisco. The castle and stage then must be dark, possibly being nighttime, or there could be a mist going on. The poor visibility and that things may not be as they seem is an important theme, and Shakespeare presents this to us already with the first line. It'll also foreshadow what happens later on in the scene, but more on that later. Back to the text. Francisco answers back, and he's also a bit scared. Bernardo responds with, "Long live the king," in line 3. So now they're both acquaintances, since "Long live the king" seems to be a password of sorts here. Bernardo is here to relieve Francisco of his guard duties and tells him to go to bed. Skip forward to line 10 when Bernardo asks if guard duty has been quiet. Francisco says, "Not a mouse stirring," which is kind of funny if you think back to his own reply back in the second line of the play. Moving on, two characters enter the scene next, Horatio and Marcellus. To give you a heads up, Horatio, not to be confused with Horatio from CSI Miami, is a very important character in the play. Francis was kind of worn out, so he leaves. Bernardo, Marcellus, and Horatio have then become the guards on duty, and they start to gossip about their experiences. Marcellus and Bernardo speaks of a thing appearing, and we're quite unsure of what they're talking about, just as much as they are unsure. We learn that Horatio has been brought into the ship because Marcellus wants him to see this thing that both the guardsmen have seen. Line 23, Horatio says, "'Tis but our fantasy." Horatio says we're just imagining it. And also line 26, "Therefore I have entreated him along. I brought him along so he can come see for himself." "Tush, tush, 'twill not appear." Horatio is pretty convinced that it's all nonsense, so the two guards begin to tell a story when suddenly, a ghost enters the scene. Aha! This is a thing they have been seeing. Remember our previous discussion of how the stage is set? It's dark or misty, and the foreshadowed mysterious setting is almost perfect for this first scene to contain a ghost. So in a way, it's a surprise and not a surprise to the audience at the same time. But I'm sure if we all saw a ghost, we'd be frightened, and so are Marcellus and Bernardo, and then they tell Horatio to speak to it because he's a scholar. Scholars like the rest of you. In line 41, they describe the ghosts in the same figure like the king that's dead. Strange. Horatio tries to get it to speak, but the ghost exits. Marcellus and Bernardo are pretty dignified after that because they proved Horatio wrong, but then Horatio identifies the ghost to be the previous dead king of Denmark. In line 69, Horatio also says, "This bodes some strange eruption to our state." Another strong foreshadow for what's to happen in the play? I do think so. Horatio elaborates on signs and omens with the speech from lines 111 to 124 until he is interrupted by the ghost again. This time it spreads its arms. It's creepy. Despite Horatio's efforts to make the ghost stay and talk to them, the ghost leaves after hearing the rooster crow. Marcellus, being the smart man that he is, wanted to keep it still with his spear, or his partisan in the text, but Marcellus knows it's pointless anyway. It's like striking air! The scene ends as they discuss how ghosts are scared away by roosters crowing. And still startled by the ghost's appearance, they decide that they will go inform Prince Hamlet about the ghost, who they think will talk to Hamlet since the ghost seems to look like Hamlet's dad. It's a very fascinating way to open a play, and when you read on, keep the foreshadowed themes of things not being what they seem and disorder in the state on your mind. If you have any questions, bring them to class or email me, and I'll see you all next time.